Hey, welcome to the October event for the Central Safety Group. Just to let you know some of the information which is on our website you might like to access. Heather Turner has placed a post showing the next 2 weeks of activities provided through WorkSafe for National Safety Month. So I do encourage you to have a look at the website and explore the information which is available. And if anybody else would like to make a post about something which is topical, please use the contact us option on the website. So we'd love to hear from you. Just as a bit of an update, bit of information that you'll have soon is that we are seeking incorporation as an association, which will provide a level of professionalism to our organisation in our lead up to our 60th anniversary year next year. So we're looking forward to announcing that in the next few months. Just before I introduce Helen O'Keefe, just some housekeeping. Please stay on mute during the presentation. If you have any questions, you could use the chat function. And at the end of the session, we will actually have an open question section. So we ask you that you turn on your cameras so that Helen can see you when you're asking questions. And we will continue after the close of the recording if you'd like to stay online for some further discussion. So again, welcome to the meeting. And now I shall introduce our guest speaker. So thank you very much to Helen O'Keefe, who's the founder and principal consultant at HOK Talent Solutions. Helen's got a wealth of knowledge about the safety industry and certainly will today be talking about the workplace changes during the pandemic that have led to some organisations creating different OHS roles and adding new requirements. So even if you're not looking for a job, you might be helping other people. We encourage that you actually learn and understand where our industry is going. So I shall hand over to Helen O'Keefe for the presentation. So thank you very much, Helen.
Thank you, Nan. What I'm going to do now is share my screen because I obviously have prepared a presentation, but firstly it's just so lovely to be here, and if I can do anything to promote your group, I'm very happy to do that because it's amazing that you have so many members and such great topics as well from looking at your website. So I'm just going to share my screen to put the presentation on. Can everybody see that? That's okay? Nan, yep, perfect. So today obviously is talking about the current OHS job scene. Now, I did do a little bit of a slide about myself, but Nan gave me that great introduction. Probably what I would love to draw your attention to is the fact that I do host a podcast with CEOs. It's called Helen O'Keefe Talk Safety, and you can download that from iTunes, or you can look at our website, which is HOK Talent Solutions. So it's a CEO from different industries every couple of months talking about health and safety within their organisations. And we have got over 1,000 subscribers now, and I love doing it. And I think a lot of the feedback we're getting is that it's giving just some amazing perspectives, particularly about how to work with boards. So if you'd like to listen to that, certainly have a look at the website or download it from iTunes. For many of you, I know some of you, I can recognise people's faces and names, but some of you might not know about my business. So I founded HOK Talent Solutions in 2015. It's health and safety recruitment. We do a lot of search and work through networks. So you won't see us like the big agencies putting ads up on Seek or LinkedIn. We absolutely take the time to understand what our clients are looking for and what our candidates are looking for, and then match those perfect people. I'm passionate about customer service and absolutely love what I do. I had an earlier career in human resources, so had my first taste of working alongside work health and safety people from a HR perspective, and passionate about what you do. So absolutely, if we can help you in any way as a job candidate, or if you need people in your team, really happy to have a conversation with you. So let's move on and talk about, without any further ado, what I'm here to talk about, which is the job market. So the job market in one word is hot, and it has been hot really since just after COVID hit. And I think looking at why, if we reflect on the last 18 months since we first heard that C word, everything changed. So nobody saw 2020 coming. It brought and is still bringing us transformation in the way we connect with people, the way we live, and then the way we work. And when I think about when I first heard the C word, and, you know, being a business owner and in recruitment, there was certainly that, oh my God, moment of, is my business going to survive? What am I going to do? How is this all going to translate? Because at that time in March, in 2020, we did have candidates that actually had job offers in their hands, and those positions were quickly pulled as everything went on hold. But then what we saw happen was, come May 2020, very few OHS roles were shared. What happened was, and I'm sure all of you would agree and nod your heads, there was increased workloads across work health and safety. So work health and safety, you know, joined HR as being at the forefront of getting everything, I guess, the house in order, because basically everybody was working from home. There was so much activity. We didn't know how to manage COVID. New protocols were coming in place. And what happened was we saw the creation of many new roles. Now, some of those were actually COVID specific. So certainly there were COVID specialist roles where people were just focusing on COVID. But many of those were actually operational safety roles or specialist roles that were brought in. I think organisations that had been running on the smell of an oily rag in terms of their OHS structure, as soon as COVID hit, they realised that they needed extra support. And so many new roles were created. We also saw, and I'll focus on this in another slide, that the industries that started to hire as well were those that were busiest and really came to the forefront at COVID. I think the reduced mobility also had a real impact on the job market. So if you think about Australia, international migration has been our prime population growth. And certainly there was a 97% drop in permanent overseas arrivals coming into Australia. Then we had the border closures as well. So, you know, where once upon a time you might have had people moving between states for roles, that was quite limited. And even though we were working from home, it was quite unusual perhaps to have a role in Melbourne where it could be based in say, Queensland. So the reduced mobility was a big factor. And then we had people really wanting job security. And many of you, perhaps who did change roles last year, did that via Zoom interviews and not even going to site. And I take my hat off to you for doing that. But around the job security, there were less candidates. And there still is that hesitancy from candidates about changing jobs at the moment. Security became so important. If we looked at the industries that were hiring as well, there was a real consistency and probably no surprises. For the 12 months from June 20 to June 21, health and aged care was right up there, manufacturing and logistics were right up there, and construction were right up there. The thing is though, there's still that, I guess, bias around you can't work in construction unless you've worked in construction. Health and aged care, obviously more open to the types of profiles they bring into the organisation. But construction, I think, continues to suffer from the fact that they're not open around the backgrounds that they can introduce to the business, because they really don't want to teach or feel they don't have maybe the capacity in lots of ways to teach that high risk safety. So I think they really suffered in terms of skill shortage and being able to find the right people for their roles. Health and aged care, an interesting one. We saw a number of roles in health and aged care and still are across injury management, even occupational hygiene is coming to the fore in those areas. And then again, really good operational generalists. So certainly roles have been created to, I think, the demand that those top three industries were requiring. If we look at now, so every month we actually analyse what the market is doing in terms of job adverts. So Absolutely not every job advertisement for a health and safety professional is advertised, but you can get a pretty good flavour of what's happening across Seek and LinkedIn. If we look at the top 3 industries recruiting now, as at September, certainly construction was still up there, professional services has come into the fore, and mining is now coming in. When we look at professional services, that is certainly consulting services, so people providing OHS consulting services, but we also have more the white collar in there. So insurance, finance, banking, legal firms come into professional services, and there has certainly been that increase there. Also, if we look at government, so probably government and mining are equal, and manufacturing is coming in there as well. So top 5, should say top 5: construction, professional services, mining, government, and then manufacturing. If we look at the categories of the roles that are being advertised, so certainly, and this has been the flavour absolutely of the last 18 months, it's been at the advisor and the senior advisor role. So they're those generalist, generally operational health and safety advisors. The real shortage of roles coming to the market has been the executive and senior manager roles, and probably no surprise there. People are, exceptionally busy in those roles and really haven't had the time to look at a new role, and job security probably comes into play there as well. There's been a number of entry-level roles hitting the market, which is great to see as well. So certainly, we've seen that across all industries. And then the specialist roles in there, again, the predominance of specialist roles have been wellbeing and injury management. Then if we look at the state data, you can see that in September, Victoria had 157 roles advertised. Now that is actually an 18% decrease from our August data. And I'm not quite sure what that true picture is. It could be the lockdown that has been continuing, where some roles might have gone a little bit slow, or it could be that we're starting to stabilise. Again, New South Wales has been recruiting very steadily, as have WA and Queensland. WA and Queensland have actually picked up in the last month. Again, construction and mining is the flavour there. So what I wanted to also touch with you is, it really is a candidate to market. So Seek have actually released data to say that it's the first time in their 21-year history that they are starting to see less applicants per role. So it really is that war for talent has actually come to the fore. And if companies don't reimagine their recruitment processes, they are going to miss out on talent. And what that means is really being strategic around the recruitment process. And it starts really with the position description. So I think gone are the days where a bland position description is really going to appeal to candidates when they are being selective or have other roles that they're looking at. So really now it's about using that position description as a job advertisement as much as it is about the skills that are required. So how can you sell the organisation in that position description? Perhaps the first page is all about the organisation and the second page is about the role. And there are some great templates that you can look at through just Googling. The other part is it's looking at mandatory requirements as well. Do you really have to have so much in your essential criteria? It's going back to that old rule about you can teach people many of the skills needed. Are their behaviours right? Are the behaviours more important? So thinking through that piece as well. It's also about the recruitment timeline. So making sure that you move recruitment processes through really quickly, and sitting down before you start recruiting, making sure that you have those panels in place. And now we're death by Zoom. Generally, it's all about the Zoom interview. So how have you, as a hiring manager, have you practiced how you will actually run that interview, who's asking what, how to connect with the candidate at the other end? So all of those things are so important now more than ever. I think traditional shortlists don't exist. So if you're a hiring manager that is used to seeing 5 or 6 candidates on a shortlist, that is really old school now in this market. It has been terrifically challenging to even get 3 on some shortlists. So if you find 1 or 2 great candidates, there's no need to look for another one. Just go with those 2. Of course, if they don't meet your requirements, don't. But what I'm saying, if there's talent with 2 people, go for them. Flexibility is absolutely a must-have. So as a recruiter, I get asked more about the flexibility rather than the salary. So how flexible is the organisation? It might not even be working from home. It might be, again, that, you know, that starting earlier, finishing earlier is important. So it's about some sort of flexibility needs to be there. Contractors will tell you their rate. So what we've found recently is there has been a demand for contractors, and gone again many of the times where you can say, I'd really like to pay $70 an hour for this contractor. That's what I've got in my budget. Really, it's about finding who the best contractor is, and then being guided by their hourly rates. Something that's what we're finding. And then engagement is key. Over the last 18 months, I have been nervous as a recruiter until the candidate, and these are professional candidates, right? Until the candidate actually starts with my client, because there have been many cases where sitting in their notice period, they've been approached about other roles, and that other role might sound really interesting and they have no connection with you, their hiring manager. You know, there was a job offer, they signed it, and the hiring manager is thinking that they'll get in touch with them a couple of days before they start. Best advice is engagement. You know, don't stalk them, but keep in touch with them that whole way through their notice period. Then for the candidates, so any of you who are looking for a new role or don't think you're looking for a new role, I think what I'd love to say here to you is flattery is great, but, and what I mean by that is you might get a phone call from a recruiter about a role, and they might talk you into having a look at the position, and before you know it, you're in front of the client, and then you think, oh no, it's not the right time, and then you pull out. So what I'm saying is flattery is great, but make sure that it's the right time for you. Don't get caught up in that excitement of getting a phone call about a new role and being enticed. It has to be obviously the right timing for you. You have to know your motivators and your non-negotiables. So sit down and do yourself a list. What's important for me? How do I need to be challenged in my next role? What does the next industry need to look like for me? What's important about, you know, the team around me, the manager, what I could learn from this role? So know what your motivators are, and then the non-negotiables. So if flexibility is important to you, know that that's one of your non-negotiables. If the salary is important to you, again, a non-negotiable. And ask questions. Like, it really is a two-way street. So make sure that you ask as many questions as what the interviewers are asking you. And then honesty is the best policy here as well. So it's not unusual now that candidates might have a couple of opportunities that they're looking at the same time, but keep your recruiter or the hiring manager involved around what's happening. They can move processes more quickly for you, so you might be able to, you know, look at 2 offers at the same time. And again, it's just about having that open conversation with people. The last thing you want to do is let an organisation down, because they will remember you, and it'll be harder for you to apply for that role with that organisation down the track. The next one is about managing counter offers. We are in a market now, and again, I haven't seen this for many years, but we're in a market where counter offers are rife. So you go to resign, and suddenly your manager realises that you know, it's going to be hard to replace you. They love you, they're losing you, they don't want you to go, and they might start to offer you more money to stay. My best advice is to remember all the reasons why you wanted to leave. So what is more money going to do? Yes, it might make you stay an extra 6 months, but it's not going to take away what was wanting to make you leave now. So think through that too. And again, it does leave a bad taste in the mouth of an organisation that has put all stops to bring you into their organisation, to then get your response to say you're not coming because you have been offered some more money. So there's certainly things to think about if you are wanting to navigate the market. What's going to happen next year? Well, there's my crystal ball there. I've only got a crystal ball. I can't really say, but my predictions are that there's going to be more senior roles. So many of you are probably feeling very fatigued, are looking forward to your Christmas break. And then what will happen next year is there'll probably be an influx of people ready to look for their next opportunity. And with that will become more senior roles, because people have been in those roles for a long time. There hasn't been that usual musical chairs that happens. I think the generalist advisor level roles will start to stabilise. So as I said, over the last 18 months, we've seen lots of demand for really good HSE generalists. I think that will start to stabilise, but the specialist roles are going to remain steady. So again, that's wellbeing, it's injury management, and also, of course, in there is return to work and workers' compensation. The occupational hygiene, I think, will still remain steady as well. Again, it's not just in mining now that you see these people, they're coming out of the woodwork into lots of different organisations. And I think the new norm is going to be established for organisations. So hopefully there won't be as many lockdowns next year. And so that new norm of the hybrid work model, whatever that looks like, will be clear for everybody, and there'll be no chopping and changing. So that's a bit of an overview, I think, of what I've certainly seen as a recruiter with the market. And it would be great to hear from you if you have any questions.
Sorry, I just tried to disentangle myself. Thank you very much, Helen, for that wonderful presentation. I think we have all noticed the increase in the demand for safety specialists, and it has been a very exciting time for people who have been contemplating moving, but I don't know many people who are moving their jobs at the moment. One thing I'd be interested to for you to make a comment on, it wasn't covered, and I start to say that HOK would use AI intelligence. What's the role of the resume or the review of resumes these days within the wider recruitment community?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So a lot of organisations out there do use those artificial intelligence, what I call machines. So, you know, they're sorting people's resumes. I would say best advice to people putting together a resume is to tailor it to the position description or the job advertisement, because those AI machines, they actually are looking for keywords. So, you know, let's say the role is a wellbeing specialist. As many times you can put wellbeing or injury management or whatever the position description states, those words in your resume, it'll come up in the sorter. It's just a sorting machine. I think just on that with resumes, a lot of people do struggle, and I understand that as well. When resumes come to a recruitment firm or an organisation, straight away, what I do, and I'm sure what a lot of other people do, is you check it via the LinkedIn profile, because predominantly most people have a LinkedIn profile. So make sure that it mirrors. On LinkedIn, you can change your job title to make it sound more contemporary or whatever you like, as long as you're not calling yourself the managing director when you're not. But you can change that. That's okay, but dates have to be right. Qualifications have to be right, dates of education, because so often I notice that they're not. So that again is, you know, a question as to why they're different. And then I think, you know, just an example I can give you today is the fact that we're recruiting a HSEQ manager role. They're seeking candidates who've got some exposure to civil as well as manufacturing. And I spoke to a candidate today who met everything over the phone, and his resume came through, but he actually hadn't I guess, expanded on his roles enough to let me see that he had that experience, but I know he does. So I have to go back and ask him to put that experience based on the position description and those requirements around manufacturing and civil into his resume. So it is about tailoring your resume for every position.
With the increase in the specialist roles, and particularly with the wellbeing area, what are you finding for the in-demand education that's coming up in the requirements for jobs?
Yeah, that's a good one, Nan. So we are seeing an increase for the need for allied health professionals. So many of the injury management roles that are coming through now, people really do want to see people who might have been OTs, physios, have had that background. And that's been a little bit of a shift. Before, you know, if you had lots of experience in maybe an insurer, or even working, you know, as a occupational nurse and moving through into that area, that was okay. But now we are seeing an increased demand for allied health professionals in that area.
Could I just ask something? Is it the same for the wellbeing roles, as in they are looking for psychologists or counsellors or whatever, as you've just indicated, the allied health for injury management?
It's interesting. There has been a little bit of a shift towards that. We've done some work with a couple of government agencies, and they've been looking for psychologists to go into wellbeing roles. So there has been a little bit more of a drive around that. But again, it really does depend on the industry. We have also seen and this chops and changes, as you're probably all aware, but you know, sometimes, or some time ago, in the not too distant future, some of the generalist work health and safety advisors used to pick up wellbeing, but we're now seeing it more either standalone or even come under human resources, people and culture. So yeah, that seems to have been established differently in many organisations.
Thanks.
Helen, David here. I'm just interested in your comments about inherent skills and capabilities versus technical experience in particular industries. And just the context that we've spoken about the difficulty to find people in healthcare. Yeah. But I'm aware that you've had some good experiences with people from other industries who. Yeah. In my mind, they've got good inherent skills. I'd just be interested in your comment about the balance between those two and the industry fit and people moving between industries.
Yeah, absolutely. So feedback around that and just thinking of fresh things, probably more just focusing on an advisor role that we have just been working with for a major hospital group. That person actually came from an allied health background into a work health and safety business partner role and a sizable role. They had 1 year of generalist work health and safety, but many years working in hospital in an allied health type of role. So that's where the organisation has gone. We actually value the health background that they can bring. They'll understand the hospital in and out. We can teach them and continue to develop their work health and safety skill. So that was an example there, but I know what you're talking about, David, something completely different. Organisations now, particularly in health, being really open to the fact that you don't have to work in health to be in health. So yes, there are a couple of large health groups out there, and they've been really open to the backgrounds of people, and it's been about looking at where are they at. So some organisations could be needing a lot of work around compliance and systems and structure. Who's going to bring the best skills to that? Is it somebody who has come from another health agency, or is it someone who's going to bring an entirely different skill set in? So an entirely different skill sets in obviously means fresh eyes, and that has been working quite well. So I think, don't discount, and again, that mandatory requirement of must have my industry experience. They don't have to, as long as they've got the people skills and as long as they've got the right, background for the role, you'll probably do much better because they'll bring in fresh eyes. Again, I think construction are the ones that that do suffer because they're reticent to actually train people up into their way of working. Craig, I was going to ask you, is that what you've experienced? Because you've danced around that, haven't you?
Me? This Craig?
Hi, Craig.
No, yeah. Yes, I've dabbled in enough construction. My last role with RMIT was construction. I guess I dabbled enough in it that I slotted right in. But looking at the safety professionals in construction with some of our clients, I think their background was construction first, safety second, with a definite focus on construction at the cost of safety. So I think I met a lot of safety professionals or practitioners in construction working for our clients who probably didn't have anything close to what I would have thought they should have in a safety background. I think so. Yeah, I think my experience in construction is I'd rather hire someone within the company who's got a dearth of construction in background, but then not even do the basics to get them trained up in safety. That's just my 2 cents, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's thinking outside. It is really thinking outside of the square. What, let's say retail, what's a similar industry to retail? It actually could be health because there's lots of similarities, large, fast paced. So it's thinking, where have they come from and what's their approach going to be and their fit going to be into our organisation, because fit is so important.
Helen, Jane Loudon here.
Hello.
Hi. I have a question about entry-level jobs. Are there a lot of them at the moment, and what are the qualifications? And linked to that, is there a strong pipeline of people and opportunities to match at the moment?
Yeah. So I would say that in terms of the entry-level roles that we see, we don't see many. We always recruit roles where some experience is required. I think there are a number of organisations now that have started again those graduate careers. And so if you look at some of the finance, banking, even construction, they will take on HSE graduates who have come out of university, but it still is really hard, I think, for people who've studied health and safety to get that break in. A lot of the advice we give is to actually go and cut your teeth, maybe in an insurance company. So, that's where you can go in, you can get involved in return to work, get some good claims management experience, and then start to develop your career from there. And we've seen people take that step change. The other thing is, many allied health professionals who want to move into work health and safety, and so many are so well qualified. I think where we've seen them really succeed is perhaps by taking that step into maybe a rehab provider and getting some really good industry exposure and injury management under their belt, and again that exposure to claims. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. That's very interesting. But if someone was leaving school and they'd like to get into health and safety, what would you recommend they study?
I would say to do the bachelor degree in work health and safety, go to university, put yourself through university. I think, I don't know, you probably can tell me more, but certainly I think that it should be starting at schools about what a great career work health and safety is, because I don't think it's publicised enough. And even at universities, I've got a stepson who's studying he graduates very soon to be an osteopath. Now they're starting to learn about health and safety in a career beyond osteopathy. But being at school and learning about health and safety, I think that's where it should start. But yeah, I'd certainly be saying if there are two candidates and one has got a bachelor degree over a certificate or diploma, it will be the candidate with the bachelor degree that gets the role.
And do you think it's an expanding field?
Sorry.
An expanding field. Are there
Yeah.
going to be more job opportunities in the future? I know some fields are shrinking, but that one is expanding.
I think that through COVID, health and safety has certainly been lifted in terms of its reputation and what it does and what a fabulous opportunity it provides.
Thank you. I think you're right about ignorance in the schools. There's so many careers kids only hear about years later. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I've had a few people ask me, I'd like to get into it. And I haven't really known exactly what, I just told them to look at other people who are in it and ask them how they got there. But I find there's an enormously variegated field out there. Everybody's got a different story as to how they got into the industry.
Oh, absolutely. I love hearing people's stories about how they got in the industry. It's fascinating because everybody has a different story. And, really nobody left school and went straight into health and safety. I've not met one person yet who did that. So it is an evolving career, but I think, wouldn't it be great to see people leave school and go straight into health and safety?
Thanks very much.
I can speak on behalf of myself and Liz Mundell, our newest member. We're both we've started in stage management, and it's really interesting how those skills are really transferable to health and safety with all the organisational side of it.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. That's amazing, amazing way.
Okay, I'm just thinking I might, if everyone stays online, we might continue the questions offline and finish the recording for those who may be watching it at a later date online. So thank you very much, Helen. And I certainly would encourage everybody to look up Helen on LinkedIn, go onto the CEO podcast, and certainly through the connection with Helen on LinkedIn, you will get the regular updates on the job market. So you'll be well positioned to move when you are ready. So thank you very much for the inspiring talk about the candidate market and how we stand in that market. So it's a very exciting time for health and safety. So looking forward to that. Just before we turn off the recording, I'll just introduce that next month on the 9th of November, we'll be having Natasha Liski coming to talk about return to work in COVID times, particularly managing the psychological risks. So I think that will be something which is very topical to many of us who are on the line today. So thank you, Helen. Stay online and we'll just turn the recording off. Thank you.